Hey Astro Kids, and welcome back. And this is my interpretation of what it looks like to have your natal moon in the nakshatra of Shatabhisha. So before we get into this, we first have to understand what the moon represents, and then we have to break down this nakshatra of Shatabhisha. Just a quick disclaimer that this is not according to Western tropical astrology. This will be according to Vedic astrology, which is using the sidereal zodiac. So if you're not familiar with what your sidereal moon sign is, there is a link to a calculator down below in the description so that you have the correct information. The moon is one of the most important grahas in Vedic astrology. The moon is representing your mind. Therefore, the moon represents everything that is happening within your life. The moon is a reflector. It is a projector. Everything that is in your mind becomes a manifestation within your physical reality. In the same way, you are perceiving everything that is happening within your reality. So the moon is projecting what is in your mind and is reflecting everything within your reality. The moon represents your body, your health, your vitality, how you are interacting with others. When people are coming across you and you are making connections, this is the personality that is coming forward. The moon represents your social standings, how you fit into society, how you're able to adapt and relate to others. The moon is also popularity and beauty. The moon is representing the mother, your connection to your mother, what kind of nurturing you need emotionally, what is making you feel emotionally satisfied. The moon is also representing all of the fluid in your body. So it is connected to your water intake. It is connected to your nourishment, all of your needs that need to be met. The moon is a very personal planet that has to do with your emotions, how you react, and how you are responding to situations around you. So, Shatabhisha can be found from 6 degrees 40 minutes till 20 degrees of Aquarius. And this is known as the 100 healers or the 100 medicines. This is all to do with healing abilities. Those who are born under this nakshatra of Shatabhisha possess great healing abilities where they are able to solve the problems of others. They are able to help and support within the collective. And the power that is associated with this nakshatra, the Shakti, is the power to heal and support, which is resulting in a world freed from calamity. So these are people who are possessing these strong mystical healing abilities, these miraculous healing abilities, as this is a Rahu nakshatra, and Rahu has everything to do with the things that are mystical, that are miraculous, that are unexpected, that are foreign, unknown to us. We talked about in our previous nakshatras of Ardra and Swati the effects of Rahu. And in Ardra, we saw very strong effects of Rahu. But in Libra, there was a more of a sweeter or softer side to this Rahu energy. Here in Shatabhisha, this is the height of Rahu's influence. Rahu feels the most comfortable here. And Rahu is actually said to be a co-ruler of Aquarius, so it especially feels home here in this Shatabhisha nakshatra. So these are people who definitely are drawn to things that are unusual, that are eccentric. These are people who can be interested in the mystical, in the occult, in hidden information, in digging into all sorts of subjects that others might perceive as taboo or strange. And in general, those who are born under Shatabhisha can come across as being very eccentric in their personality. So these are people who can definitely feel misunderstood or detached from society. These are people who often are treated as different or seen in this light as someone who is very different from the rest of the world. There's definitely an inherent rebellious nature that is found under this nakshatra. These are people who don't want to just follow the crowd, who want to do something different. There's a strong level of independence that is found within this nakshatra that can definitely make these individuals want to isolate, to retreat, to do things in a different way from the way that the rest of the society is functioning. And so these are people who definitely can come across as very secretive, as very mysterious, as very aloof in their personality. There are hidden factors to this personality in general, where these are people who love to be in isolation, who love their privacy, who love their time to research and explore and meditate, and to really come into this level of self awareness on their own. These are people who, as this is falling in the sign of Aquarius, are very intellectual. And so there is a high level of intelligence often for those who are born with a prominent placement here in this nakshatra. So especially with the rising sign or the moon sign, you can see above average levels of intelligence, people who possess a great deal of wisdom and knowledge. These are people who also can be very talented. So I've seen a lot of musicians and artists who are born under this Shatabhisha nakshatra. These are people who excel at learning and discovering topics that are very complex or misunderstood by others. And so again, there can be a great love of the occult, of the esoteric, of things that are very mystical in nature. And this is often also called Shatataraka, which means the 100 stars. And so these are people who are often referred to as the sky watchers as well, where there can be a great love of astrology, of astronomy, of aeronautics. These are people who are drawn to the things that are related to the sky, to travel, to things that are beyond this world. And the symbol of this nakshatra is an empty circle, which can also be seen as a portal to take you to another reality, where again, these are individuals who are interested in exploring the things that go beyond the physical, beyond the mundane. These are people who are highly interested in discovering the secrets of the universe, in discovering deeper philosophical subjects. These can be people who are very scientific, who are very philosophical, who are very mystical in their approach to life. And these are often the geniuses of the zodiac. These are the visionaries who have huge ideas, who are able to see outside of the box, who are able to discover and learn things that are beyond this world. So this is a very powerful nakshatra. Now, this empty circle can also be seen as a boundary or restriction. Again, these are people who often can feel isolated or detached from society. We talked about in our previous videos how the sign of Capricorn and the sign of Aquarius both have this issue where they are feeling very much detached and disconnected. They can often come across as cold and detached in their personality, where there is a level of mystery, a level of secrecy, a level of reserve that is there in the personality. And so these are people who can struggle with fitting in. These are people who often can feel very much out of place. They can feel like they are having some kind of a limit or boundary on their life where they're not able to explore or to go beyond this boundary. Especially early on, there is a feeling of restrictedness. Those who are born under this nakshatra also are about setting boundaries. So the deity that is ruling over Shatabhisha is Varuna. And Varuna is the original king of the gods before Indra became the king himself. And so Varuna ultimately is seen as a deity that is in charge of everything, that is all pervasive, that is encompassing everything in the universe. And these are people born under this Shatabhisha nakshatra who are very much in tune with everything in the universe. They're in tune with how this whole world works, all of the energy, the vibration that is occurring within society. This is a nakshatra that is often associated with lightning. If you look at the original symbol of Shatabhisha, it is an empty circle, but it has these lightning bolts that are coming out of the circle. And so this lightning has to do with the energy, it has to do with the vibration of the world, of the collective. So these can be very intuitive people, also very much tapped into how everything is working within the world. And this can also manifest for people who are working in fields that involve electricity. The circle also is seen as multiple spirals in one. So there's actually more than one circle that is combined within this giant symbol of the circle. And again, this is representing the collective, the world. And so these are people who are very much in tune with society. And this is related to Rahu, which is the planet that keeps us entrapped in this material existence. So Rahu is the planet that is responsible for bringing us into this world. Rahu is the repeating lesson, the repeating pattern, the repeating obsession, the destiny point that we continue to move towards. And so for those who are not learning this lesson of Rahu, they are coming back into this existence. They are reincarnating. Rahu is the prison guard that keeps us trapped in this material illusion. And so Rahu is all about the illusion. It is all about the material world, all about the things that are enticing, all about the fantasy, the dream of this world, the beauty of this world. It is pulling us into our desires, into our fantasies, into everything that is encompassing this material existence. And so these are people who also can have issues surrounding their desires. And this is something that we saw in the last two Rahu nakshatras as well, especially in that Swati nakshatra where we saw that energy of Venus as well, where those were very sensual people, very much tuned into their senses and their desires. But there is a very extreme level of this occurring within this section here of Aquarius, as this again is the height of Rahu. This is where Rahu reaches its peak, where it reaches its most extreme expression. And so these are people who can struggle with addiction, who can struggle with overindulgence, who can become completely obsessed and immersed in their desires. And oftentimes this is coming from the fact that, again, Aquarius is a sign that is very detached in nature. And so there can be a feeling of emptiness, of loneliness, of being disconnected from others, of feeling misunderstood by others. And as a result, there can be a tendency to fill that void with alcohol, with sex, with anything, drugs, anything that is going to fuel that feeling of emptiness, that is going to fill up that emptiness within. And so this can be a difficulty within this nakshatra, is getting into these addictions, getting into these obsessions. These can be individuals who like to repeat the same things within their lives, which again is related to Rahu. Rahu has this obsessive nature where it wants to continuously consume more and more within this material world. And so sometimes you can see people born under this nakshatra who struggle with OCD, people who are repeating the same patterns, doing the same things repeatedly. These can be individuals who can struggle a great deal as far as their mental health as well. There sometimes can be chronic illnesses or unexplained illnesses that are related to this nakshatra of Shatabhisha. Oftentimes, these are people who also can work with patients, who can work in the healing fields to deal with these chronic issues, to deal with these difficult issues with others as well. And so, in a lot of cases, their experience, their challenges that they go through often makes them a healer. They understand how to navigate this experience, this difficulty that they've went through, which makes them excellent at healing and helping others. And so what we can see as a major theme with all three of the Rahu nakshatras is that Rahu takes you through difficulties, it takes you through obsessions, it takes you through illusions, and that is usually meant to wake the individual up. Rahu creates great shock, great transformation. And so the people who are born under these Rahu nakshatras often go through difficulties in life, and that transforms them into reaching this higher path in life where they're able to help others, they're able to make an impact within society through the struggles and difficulties that they have went through. And as this is the height of Rahu's influence, these are people who really can make a difference through their struggles and complications that they go through as far as their health. This empty circle is often depicted in ancient times as the Ouroboros or as the cosmic egg. So again, this is very mystical. This is all about traveling through different dimensions, traveling through different realities, which was another theme that we saw in our Swati Nakshatra, where Swati has this ability to go through lucid dreaming, to go through all of these psychic phenomena, this ability to shift between worlds, shift between realms, which is associated with this mystical and exotic planet of Rahu. So those who are born under the Shatabhisha Nakshatra also can have mystical and intuitive abilities. These can be individuals who understand secrets that others do not understand. They can comprehend the mystical, the deeper aspects of life. And so oftentimes you can see these miraculous talents and abilities that are found under this nakshatra. Those who are extremely intelligent, those who are musically talented, those who are able to achieve on such a high level that it seems impossible or it seems prestigious. There's something about this nakshatra that does exceptional in life, that is able to achieve feats that other people are not able to live up to. And so these are very interesting people who are born under this nakshatra. Again, these are the visionaries of the zodiac. These are the people who are very elusive, who are very imaginative, who are very creative, who are very ingenious. They are able to revolutionize the world, who are able to achieve all of these amazing, miraculous abilities within life. These are people who, again, can be very secretive, very mysterious, and so, again, they can come across as very detached, as very difficult to approach, difficult to get to know. These are people who also can deal with secrecy as well within their career, within their lives. These can be people who can make excellent spies, detectives, people who are into research, who are making new breakthroughs and discoveries within the world. These are people who can work from behind the scenes, who are able to hold on to secretive information. And these are people who also, on the negative side, can be very stalkerish or into spying on others. So there's this interest in learning about hidden information, of learning about what's hidden in the darkness. And this is also associated with Varuna, as Varuna is described as being the midnight sun, or the sun that is below the horizon in this darker zone, in this underworld. And so these are people who are associated with the hidden factors. And with this connection to the nighttime, these can be people who are very active at night, people who are more active at night than they are during the daytime. They could have a nighttime job. They could be involved in doing things that involve a lot of privacy, a lot of secrecy, very much behind the scenes. And these are people who want to help, who have a desire to help in society. Again, this is the star of the 100 healers. This is also called the veiling star. So again, we see the secrecy, we see the mystery that's associated with this nakshatra. This also can be associated with the covering of the earth. So Varuna is also described as being the god of the oceans, of the cosmic oceans. So again, we see this connection to astronomy, astrology, to things that go beyond this realm, the philosophical, the mysteries of life, with this cosmic connection. This circle also can represent expansiveness, openness. So again, this connection with the collective, this connection to helping and healing the world is very strong within this nakshatra. And because this is a Rahu nakshatra, which Rahu is a very intellectual planet, right? We saw that Rahu is occurring in all three of the air signs. So Rahu is very much about intelligence, about intellectualizing things, analyzing things. And so these can be people who are very observant, very detail oriented, very much disciplined and on task. These are people, though, on the negative side who can become very rebellious. And so, again, we're in the sign of Aquarius that is all about taking a different path in life. Aquarius walks a different path from the rest of society. And so these are individuals who can be very rebellious, who can be very much about taking their own path in life. And sometimes this can come across in a very harsh or contradictory way where they are very much about going against the grain. This can occur because, again, they feel very misunderstood, very different. And so they are all about taking their own path. Sometimes they can come across, though, as very controversial, very much stirring up conflict within society, poking people's buttons, trying to get a reaction out of others. So these are people who can play psychological games with others, who can have this very confrontational demeanor about them as well. And so sometimes the speech can come off across as harsh because these are individuals who don't necessarily agree with everyone. They have their own view, their own opinion, their own way of seeing life. And so they oftentimes can come into conflict with others, can stir things up, can create a great shock with their way of expressing themselves. These are people who are amazing problem solvers. So, again, they are the healers. They're all about solving other people's issues. But this doesn't only have to come out in terms of healing professions, this can also come across in an intellectual way where they're able to work out problems, they're able to figure out how things work and how to break things down, how to fix things, how to come up with solutions, strategies, plans behind how to work out difficulties. These are people with this connection to Rahu who can be very much skilled in media and anything that is involving intelligence, communication. All of these skills can come through. So, again, these are very innovative people, very much future oriented. They are excellent when it comes to innovation, technology, coming up with new ideas, really revolutionizing the way that society is. And they have a desire to help, they have a desire to progress humanity forward. So, this relationship with the 100 healers is also sometimes called the 100 rescuers or the 100 shooting stars, which is associating with star seeds, with angelic beings who come down to earth to save it from utter disaster. So these are people who are very much in tune with this energy of wanting to help, of striving to make the world a better place. These are people who can be very meditative and reflective. They have a deep level of understanding of how everything in the universe is interconnected. And so they can have a deep spiritual awareness if they are seeking this out. They are able to go inward, to reflect deeply, to connect in with their deeper intuition. Sometimes these people can have issues with emotion. And so, again, Aquarius is a very detached sign, very reserved, very much focused more on the intellectual factors of life rather than being so much about emotion. And so we can see that one of the greatest obstacles for those who are born with Aquarius moon or even Aquarius rising is going to be their emotions. When Aquarius is in the first house for the moon or the ascendant, we can see that Cancer is ruling over the sixth house of challenges and daily obstacles. And so these are people who are very sensitive on the inside. Even though they can come across as cold, detached, mysterious, they are actually quite sensitive and caring from the inside. These are people who care deeply for humanity, who have a ton of empathy for those who need help, but they can struggle with expressing this emotion due to their detached nature. And so they can have difficulty with actually sympathizing with others, of showing their sympathy to others. They can have difficulty with expressing their feelings and can have a tendency to over intellectualize everything. And because of this, there can sometimes be moodiness. They can have moments of emotional outbreak due to this repressed feeling that is occurring here in this nakshatra. And so there is a need to take care of your emotional health, of your psychological health under this nakshatra to really find ways to express yourself properly. This can sometimes come out in anger. There can be great frustration and stress that is found under this nakshatra, which can amount to anger and expressing oneself in a nasty or intense way at times. And so, again, this is something for those who are born under this nakshatra. This is something to work on. This is something to really pay attention to your psychological health, to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. These are people who also can be very generous, very giving, and sometimes there is a tendency to overextend themselves, to give too much, and to give to the wrong people. We talked about in a previous video how Rahu sometimes can give a difficulty with seeing what is good and what is wrong. And so there is a tendency with Rahu to go to extremes where one can go all the way to the end of the spectrum of being very good, very noble, very much about helping others. And then there's the other end of the spectrum of leaning more to this chaotic, self-destructive tendency. And so these are people who definitely can be self destructive at times, who can go into a deep depression. Again, a lot of this is due to this feeling of being confined or detached, restricted in some way, of feeling very disconnected from others. Sometimes these are people who also can have an ego about their intelligence. And so while these people have a superior level of intelligence, they sometimes can become very arrogant about how knowledgeable they are. And they can have this demeanor of being a know-it-all, of very much putting other people's opinions and thoughts aside and acting as if they know everything. And so this can also be where their detached nature can come in, where they can sometimes not be willing to argue or not be willing to get into situations or to not be willing to listen to others because they have a feeling that they already know. Varuna is also described as being the judge of everything. So Varuna is said to be in a remote place in the universe, but is able to see everything that is happening within the universe. And so this can relate to Shatabhisha being very observant, very detail oriented, very intellectual. They're able to see things that other people are not able to see. And so this Varuna is also associated with the universal law, with the cosmic principles of governing the universe. And so this also can be associated with those born under Shatabhisha, where they can be interested in law, or they can be social justice warriors. They can be all about correcting the wrongs of society. And these people can also come across as strict and harsh at times in terms of their ability to uphold the law, in terms of them pointing out other people's wrongdoings, of trying to bring about justice. There can sometimes be a harshness that is found within this nakshatra. These are people who can do very well as politicians, as social justice warriors, as freedom fighters, as people who are trying to go out in the world to make a difference. They can also make excellent lawyers or judges. Again, all about standing up for what's right, all about the justice, the law, the order of things. These can also make excellent writers. Again, they have a lot of intelligence, and so they can be excellent at writing, at creating things. They can make excellent journalists, researchers, investigators. They're very much into exploring, into uncovering the hidden secrets of life, very much into mystery, into solving puzzles, into getting into the deeper understanding of how everything fits together. And so also there can be a deep interest in psychology. You can see therapists who are born under this nakshatra. Again, with these healing abilities, these abilities to work with others who are going through difficult to treat illnesses. These are people who also can work in the pharmaceutical industry. They can work in anything that involves drugs, chemicals, alcohol. Again, as this is all associated to this addictive, obsessive quality of Rahu. And this is ruled over by Varuna, the god of the ocean. So there's association with fluids, liquids, chemicals. These can be also people who are very spiritual, into yoga, meditation, all sorts of alternative healing practices and wellness. They are looking to better themselves. They're looking to strive towards something that is greater. But again, often these people can be like a wounded healer where they can have more luck in healing and helping the world while also going through struggles of their own that are difficult to heal. With the association with the 100 flowers, which also is related to the 100 stars or the 100 healers, these can be people who are interested in working with herbs, working in homeopathy, working as healers who are experts with herbs and exotic medicines, alternative medicines. Again, this has a strong association with medicine, drugs, fluids. All of this is associated with this Shatabhisha nakshatra. Under this nakshatra, there can also be a great awareness of life and death. So we talked about in our previous nakshatras that fall in the sign of Capricorn, how Capricorn can be very serious. It can be very realistic. It can have a great understanding and deep wisdom of how things are in the world. And we see a similar energy as we come into Aquarius, as Aquarius is also ruled by Saturn, which is this planet that is dealing with death. It's dealing with limitation. It's dealing with old age. It's dealing with the reality of life. It is dealing with the harsher truths of justice, of taking the righteous path, of hard work. It's a very mature planet. And so we can see these mature qualities in the way of thinking under this nakshatra of Shatabhisha, where these are people who have an acute awareness of death, of how life works, of the mysteries of life. These are people who also can be highly protective. So we talked about how this circle is representing restriction, how they are all about standing up for what's right, about helping others. And so they can get extremely attached and controlling at times in terms of wanting to help and protect others. These are very protective people. They're also all about the truth. And again, their speech sometimes can come across as harsh, as they are all about getting to what is right, to what is truthful, to what is just. These are people who really have an ability to cloak themselves as well. Again, this is related to veiling, to covering, to secrets, to mystery. And so these are people who sometimes you don't even notice that they're there. They're operating from behind the scenes. They have this very much cloaked personality where they're often very shy and reserved, very quiet, again, needing a lot of time to themselves as they have this very mysterious and misunderstood personality. And as this circle is not just about restriction, it is also about, again, openness. It is dealing with the openness of the universe. Again, the symbol of this nakshatra is the cosmic egg or the Ouroboros, this empty, dark circle, which is acting as a portal to all the realms of the universe. It is being in tune with all of the collective. And in Vedic astrology, we look at the three realms that are contained within the cosmic egg. That is all about the lower realm, the higher realm, and the cosmos. So, this connection to this whole universe that we live in is associated with this nakshatra, which is why this nakshatra often is very ingenious, wanting to change the world, wanting to make it a better place, wanting to make new discoveries and breakthroughs. This is very strong here in Shatabhisha. There can also be an intensity about them. So again, they can come across as very reserved, as very much to themselves. But even in their appearance, they can come across as intense. And what I've noticed is that Rahu especially has an effect on the eyes, where these are people who can have very intense, magnetic, penetrating gazes. These are people who can have very attractive looking eyes, but there is a level of intensity, of focus in their eyes where they're able to penetrate through anything. Again, very observant people, very detail oriented. These are people who also are very simplistic in their approach to life, very refined. They are not so much about being flashy or outward, although they are very much geared towards the external world in terms of their desires and chasing the things that they want to achieve in life. Their speech can often be very impressive, so they are able to captivate the attention of others through their amazing speaking abilities. And we talked about how that manifested in the last two nakshatras that were Rahu ruled, which were Ardra and Swati, how this Rahu energy is associated with amazing speaking abilities, with charm, with charisma, with this ability to captivate an audience, to come across as very mysterious and mesmerizing to others. There is a sexual energy that is also associated with this Rahu influence, where these are people who often come across as very attractive, as very magnetic, as very alluring. There is this elusive, mystical quality about the Rahu nakshatras that is able to create a great deal of sex appeal. And so these are people who can also come across as very attractive at times. And these are people who are very sexual in nature. They often have very high sexual desires. Again, this Rahu energy, when it becomes negative, when it takes us astray, can overdo it. It can blow things out of proportion. And so there's always a need in this nakshatra to develop discipline, to pay close attention to your habits. Are you getting addicted to things? Really working through your emotional problems and not trying to fill up this cup with these addictions and substances. They are often very much concerned with understanding human behavior, understanding what other human beings are up to. And so they are excellent at listening and observing, which again makes them excellent therapists, excellent counselors. These are people who are able to help others through their difficulties. Sometimes this nakshatra is very strict and very rule abiding, and even more so than our previous Rahu nakshatras. So we saw in the Ardra nakshatra that that was ultimately about going against the rules, about going against everything that is unjust within this society, going against the norms and standards that are actually hurting or oppressing others. In the Swati nakshatra, it was about being polite, being elegant, going with the flow of things. But here in the Swati nakshatra, there can be a strictness. There can be a militant quality in terms of following the rules and doing things in the right and just way. And these are people who also can be very opposing, where they can put their views of what is right and wrong onto others. And their views of what is right and wrong is very serious, it's very strict, it's very extreme. And so these are people who pay attention to every detail of what is right and wrong. They can make excellent judges and lawyers for this reason. They can do very excellent in fields of law. These are people who ultimately have to accept themselves, who have to look inward, who have to find healthy ways to fill this void, to address this void that is occurring inward, because these are people who were born to be different. This is the height of Rahu's energy, and Rahu is all about going against the norms of society. So these are people who are going to be very unique, very unconventional. And this can be very difficult if you're not willing to accept yourself. There is a need to be more accepting of yourself and to be less harsh or strict on yourself, to accept what makes you unique, to accept your talents and gifts, as these are the things that you're able to give to the world to help to uplift the world. So there is a need within this nakshatra of strong self-acceptance. These are people who often can clash with authority, especially. And so there can be difficulties around authority figures within the home. There can be a desire to rebel, to leave home, to go on a trip away from home. So sometimes we can see that this nakshatra can go on long journeys, that it can go to foreign places to get away from their origin of birth, where they are very much about breaking away from the restrictive customs and norms of their family. These are people who also can struggle in relationships. So we can see that Leo, which is also the sign of authority, is ruling over the seventh house from the moon or rising sign that is falling under Shatabhisha. And so these are people who can attract very authoritative and dominating partners. And this can cause a great deal of ego battles within the relationship, as these are people who don't want to be controlled, who want the freedom to be themselves, who want the freedom to be different, which again is all associated with this Aquarius nakshatra. And while these are people who can be very strict, as this is a Rahu nakshatra, Rahu is creating a lot of contradiction within the psyche. Rahu is very complex, it's very illusionary, it's very confusing. And so these are people who can be about freedom, who can be about their individuality, but can also be about strictness and limitation at the same time. But these are people who ultimately can struggle when they are getting into relationships with partners who are dominating. They can have a lot of difficulty with this, where they are very much about their freedom. These are people, however, who can also attract partners who are very helpful, though. Partners who are looking to uplift them, or who are looking to give their path a direction. And so while these are individuals who are very unique and have a unique path to take in life, they can attract partners who can help them to make that path more solid, to make them move towards their greatness. And so while their partners can be dominating, and this can come across in a negative light for them, oftentimes they are actually attracting partners who want to help. What I've noticed is that Rahu also can have a connection to eating meat. So sometimes there can also be an addiction with meat as well, along with these other substances or fillers that can be used to fill this void. These are people who can make excellent surgeons. Again, this is all about this restriction, this covering. So these are people who are very good at covering up problems, who are good at healing problems, who are good at bringing things together, at bringing things to a conclusion. And so you can see surgeons, you can see people who are very technical, who can work in technical fields to resolve issues. So each nakshatra can be divided up into four sections or four padas. Pada means foot, so these are the 4 feet of this nakshatra, and these can show different characteristics depending upon which pada or quarter that you're born under. So we can take this 13-degree 20-minute nakshatra and break it up into 4 3-degree 20-minute sections. And the first one is falling under a Sagittarius Navamsa. This is from 6 degrees 40 minutes till 10 degrees of Aquarius. And these are people who often are very knowledgeable, very philosophical. They make excellent teachers, guides, advisors, counselors. They are excellent at sharing their wisdom out into the world. And they often are very idealistic. They have a big picture perspective of how they want to help or impact the world. Whatever these individuals tend to do, they become an expert or master at it, or tend to be highly regarded for their work. They are very well liked people. And out of all of the quarters of this nakshatra, this Sagittarius Navamsa tends to be the most optimistic, the most cheerful, the most upbeat. These are people who can come across as very happy-go-lucky in their personality. They often are also very fortunate and blessed in life. One area of concern within this first quarter, though, is excessiveness, as this is Sagittarius, this Jupiter expansiveness within this nakshatra, which is Rahu ruled. Rahu likes to blow things up. So you want to be careful that you're not expanding yourself too far, that you're not getting stuck in your desires. There can be a tendency to overdo things, to become overly excessive within this first quarter on the negative side. Within the second quarter, these are people who are more serious, who are more reserved, who are more practical. They're very disciplined in their approach and very much about creating order, creating rules, creating laws, about being very organized and disciplined. These are people who also can be very materialistically driven, but they are also very much interested in spirituality, interested in exploring things that are beyond this world. These can be people who are interested in outer space, who can make excellent researchers, doing things that are behind the scenes, coming up with these excellent breakthroughs and discoveries. These can be people who are very hardworking and put a great deal of effort into the work. And they could do very well in jobs that require being behind the scenes, such as spies, researchers, detectives. Those who are born under the third quarter or third pada are born under an Aquarius Navamsa. This will be from 13 degrees 20 minutes till 16 degrees 40 minutes of Aquarius. And these are people who are very unconventional, who are very much about going against the norms. They are all about social reform, about making a difference within life, about innovating, about making these revolutionary discoveries that take us into the future, that progress society as a whole. These are people who often come across as the most unique, the most rebellious, the most unconventional under this nakshatra, as this is a Virgotama ascendant. So we have a double Aquarius effect that is occurring here within this nakshatra. These are people under this third quarter who also can receive great success in life. Their desires, their dreams often get fulfilled, as these are people who are very hardworking and dedicated. They also are people who often love to work in groups. They are very much group oriented, very social people. They love to exchange their ideas with others, and they are drawn to intellectual people, drawn to people who share the same views and philosophies as they do. And so these are people especially who can get involved in those subcultures and those secret societies and those groups where they're sharing similar views. Those who are born under the fourth quarter of fourth pada are born under a Pisces Navamsa. This will fall from 16 degrees 40 minutes till 20 degrees of Aquarius, so stretching out to the end of this nakshatra. And these are people who are very imaginative, who are very creative. They are very much filled with ideas and possibilities, and they can make excellent writers. They can do well in any kind of creative fields, photographers, poets, people who are involved in film, who have this ability to work in the creative arts. They also can be very compassionate. This is the most sensitive part of this nakshatra, where these can make excellent healers, excellent counselors, excellent helpers. They care a great deal about the welfare of others, and they are very much about enjoying themselves, about indulging in the momentary pleasures of life. They are very much in the moment. They love to enjoy things, to dive into the sensual pleasures of life. The only concern with this nakshatra is that this can be a very isolated nakshatra, and indulging in these sensual pleasures and being isolated can lead to addiction. So there is a need to be careful about, are you becoming lonely? Are you becoming too detached where you're feeling this emptiness that you have to feel with some kind of substance? Be very careful under this fourth quarter about getting into addictions and bad habits.